Welcome back. For our second presentation, we will request you participants to please send your questions and comments to the chat. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Janine Matz, who will be talking about the power of communities of practice. Janine Matz is originally from Chicago, Illinois, and did her graduate studies in applied linguistics at the University of Illinois at Chicago. She is currently a full-time professor and researcher of linguistics at the Pontificia Universidad Católica del Ecuador in Quito. She also is the creator and administrator of the Facebook page Ecuadorian Public School English Teachers, through which she voluntarily provides thousands of English teachers with resources to enhance their practices. She participated in several national and international conferences, as well as published a handful of articles in academic journals. Janine is a regular consultant with the United States Peace Corps in Quito and is currently collaborating with Relo Andes and the U.S. Embassy in Peru, producing webinars for English teachers in the region. Welcome, Janine.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello. Nice to see all of you, even if it's just virtually. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm glad to share this very important topic with you that is about communities of practice. So if we could get started with the slides, we'll take a look. Okay. So like I mentioned today, we're going to talk about an important topic for us English teachers, learning communities. So I have a question for you to start. Besides introducing yourselves and telling us where you're from, what part of the world you're joining us from, I'd like you to please also respond to this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all and 10 being a lot, how important do you think it is to connect with other teachers? So I want to see some numbers in the chat right now. Let me see some of your numbers. Aline says 9. Wanda says 10. Let's see. Brenda says 9. Okay, 10. I'm seeing some high numbers here, huh? A lot of you are saying 10. Thank you, Salvador, Larissa, Rosa, Ivan, 10, Yenia, 9. High numbers. Okay, so my follow-up question is, why? Why do you think it's important to connect with other teachers? Why is that important in our profession as teachers? If you'd like to put your reasons why that's important, please go ahead and share them in the chat. Why is it important to connect with others? Okay. This sense of connection that we're talking about right now is at the heart of what we call a community of practice or a community of learning in some contexts, right? A community of practice, or COP, can be defined as a group of people who share a concern or passion for something they do and learn how to improve their skills in that domain through actively engaging with each other. And I'm seeing some of the reasons you guys put here, why it's important. I see some of them. Mariana says, learn through experiences, right? Mauricio says it's important to share experiences. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. Working together, learning from each other, to share information, all of those things that you guys are mentioning in the chat are absolutely valid reasons to build communities together that go beyond the walls of our individual schools, right? Nowadays, since we have so much technology and since we survived a pandemic where we depended a lot on technology, on video conferencing like Zoom, Teams, etc., we have even more resources to help us to build extended communities of practice, which is wonderful. Okay. Some of the key elements of a COP, community of practice, is, for example, the domain. By domain, we mean the shared interest or area of knowledge. In this case, we're referring to English language teaching. right? But there are also communities of practice that do things related to biology, to computer science, to a lot of different things. It's not only limited to teaching. So communities of practice can be used in many different fields. Also, we have to look at the component of community. Community is the people who interact, share experiences, and support one another. So we can have varying sizes of communities, right? We can have our local communities. I know some of you are joining us from Mexico, for example. You can have a local community at your school. Let's imagine that your school is in Oaxaca, for example. Or we can have a community of teachers from Oaxaca public schools, or we can have a community of teachers from Mexican public schools, or we can even get even broader and have a community of teachers from Latin American public schools, etc. Yeah. So these communities can be small, but they can also be very large. And also, we have to look at practice, which is the shared repertoire of resources, techniques, and tools that emerge from the group. So, obviously, when we have a lot of people joining together, we have a lot of sharing and exchanging of ideas. And this is one of the main purposes of a community of practice, to develop new ideas together. Maybe sometimes as teachers, we think, I have the best ideas for my classroom. These are the best ideas. And then suddenly, for example, a teacher in Chile hears from a teacher in Colombia a new way of working with, for example, the verb to be. Suddenly, you say, wait, this is also a great idea. And you can enhance your own practices through that, right? So the idea is to exchange different ideas, but also to create new ones collaboratively. Yeah? Okay. I have another question for you. So you can also please respond in the chat. Thank you for so much participation. This is awesome. It's so great to see so many teachers here. Okay. So by the definition I gave you of COP, which of these two is an example of a COP for you? Option number 1 is a group of teachers who meet at lunchtime to complain about how their students don't pay attention in class. And option number 2 is a WhatsApp group of English teachers in Latin America, shares classroom ideas, discusses new methodologies, and support each other through teaching challenges. I see lots of you putting 2. David, thank you. Number 2, Mayra, Jose, Maria, Aaron, Alma, all of you are putting 2. That's correct. That's absolutely correct. Option 1 is not considered a community of practice because even though we have participants, a community that belongs to a same group, which is teachers at an institution, for example, we're not doing things that are necessarily productive for the field, right? We all sometimes complain. That's true, right? But that's not what a community of practice is about. A community of practice is about generating new ideas and better practices in teaching, right? Exactly. All of you are putting 2. Thank you very much for your participation. So definitely 2 is a good example of a community of practice. And look at how big this community of practice is. It's a WhatsApp group of English teachers in Latin America. This can be so many people. Yeah. So like I said, communities of practice can be smaller or they can be really large as well. Okay. I have another question for you. Do you belong to any teaching related groups already? And if so, which one or which ones? So like we talked about earlier, this can be on a small level, maybe just your institution or your district or your town or city, or it can be on a national level, maybe at the level of Mexico or Peru or Chile or Colombia, or it can be on an international level. So tell us if you belong to any groups, please. Yes, so I see some of you commenting TESOL Mexico. Okay, good. What other groups? Some of you are putting yes. That's good. Tell us the names of these groups so we can learn about more groups that you belong to. Yes, okay, everything related to English teaching. Maybe some of you belong to some groups that are not necessarily only for English teachers, but maybe also for teachers in other institutions, in other fields. Maybe you also work with the math teachers or the science teachers, etc. I see some of you putting Proni, Mexico, Jalisco. Yeah, good. Bilingüismo Córdoba. Lots of different groups. This is great. Some of you say not yet. No, not yet. Not yet. That's a great answer. Not yet, but soon, very soon, because you're starting to see the benefits of a community of practice, right? So this is really good. Proni is a very common one I see from our Mexican teachers. Great. Proni Chihuahua, Ciudad de Mexico. Nice, really nice. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about a particular group that I have firsthand experience with to show you how this group was built. So here we see on the screen, it says social media platforms as communities of practice. So as the introduction said, I am originally from Chicago, but I live in Ecuador. I have lived in the capital of Ecuador, in Quito, for the past 13 years. And here I have worked a lot with public school English teachers. So I created this Facebook page 5 years ago that is called Ecuadorian Public School English Teachers. And it is considered now a community of practice. So this is a screenshot of what the page looks like. As you guys can see, the photo that we have at the top here has a very important quote that supports communities of practice. We can see that it says, the most valuable resource that all teachers have is each other. Without collaboration, our growth is limited to our own perspectives. And this is so true. This is a quote by Robert John Meehan. What is he saying here? That we have the opportunity to learn so much from each other. And if we don't participate in these types of communities, we are very limited in our practice. We don't have the opportunity to grow as much as if we participate in these types of communities. So like I said, you can see this is a Facebook page. Even if you are from a different country, not Ecuador, that's fine. If you'd like to join the Facebook page to see what we're doing in English teaching in the public school system in Ecuador, you are welcome to join the page. Just search in Facebook Ecuadorian Public School English Teachers. So how was this community of practice developed? There's a need. A lot of times communities of practice are developed because of an important need. So in this case, in the year 2020, the Ministry of Education of Ecuador released new English texts for the public school system. And no one was in the English area in the Ministry of Education to be able to implement these texts. They had no employee in that particular area at that time in the Ministry of Education of Ecuador. Therefore, as someone who had written one of the books and as the editor-in-chief of the project, I said, I'm a teacher. I know what it feels like to have new material and not know how to work with it. I have to do something. So in April of 2020, I started the Facebook page with the original intent of streaming live webinars on how to use the new texts, because the new texts for the public school system were very different from what the teachers were used to. So they needed some instruction because it was using content and language integrated learning and also a communicative approach. So the books looked very different from the ones they were accustomed to using. So my original idea, which is what I did at the beginning, was provide webinars voluntarily to help the teachers to understand how to use the new material. Now, 5 years later, we have over 9,300 members on that Facebook page, the large majority of which are public school English teachers in Ecuador. And the page has expanded. It has really gone into a lot of different areas. Now we don't only talk about using the modules for the public school system, we talk about a lot of things related to English teaching in the context of Ecuador. So it includes, for example, official announcements from the Ministry of Education, courses that are offered, conferences that are going to be given, calls for papers for our teachers who publish, the participants' questions. Sometimes colleagues post questions on the wall, they ask each other. We exchange advice, we use motivational phrases about teaching, And we have even done some karaoke nights. We have organized some social events through the Facebook page where we have connected through Zoom or through different whatever platforms we use, Teams, etc. And we sometimes organize karaoke nights where teachers attend just to get to know each other and to sing, those of us who like to sing. So it's become quite an incredible community. It started off with one purpose, but as you can see, it has expanded to include other elements that are important and relevant to English teachers in Ecuador. Okay. So after having presented what COPs are, giving you an example or two, talking about the components of COPs, we have to reflect on how COPs can benefit teachers. And what about your students? What do you think? Can COPs benefit teachers? I think everyone would say yes, but how? Go ahead and write it in the chat, okay? Yes, thank you. We teachers need to stand together. I totally agree. Yes. I'm looking at all of your comments. They're going by so fast, but yes, they're very powerful. I'm seeing some of you writing about these COPs. They're very powerful. Yes. How can they benefit us though? Okay, we seek share tips. That's right. Exchange ideas, new information to do a better job. I think that's very important. Thank you, Gabs, for that comment. Learn together. Fair. Thank you. Yes, karaoke nights. Yes, you guys should try karaoke nights. It's a great bonding experience. Okay, teachers can get more resources. Wonderful. Yes. What about your students? Can your students benefit if you as teachers belong to communities of practice? What do you think? Do your students benefit? Let's think about it. Okay. Okay. Why do COPs matter for teachers? Oh, there are so many reasons, some of which you guys have already mentioned. Awesome. Great. Here's a few that I have here, right? So we have collaboration. Teachers exchange strategies and experiences relevant to their own classrooms. Sometimes we think we have the best practices, but then when we're exposed to other practices, we say, wow, wait a minute, this is even better. Yeah. Continuous learning. COPs are semi-informal. It depends on the COP you belong to, but some of them are more formal, others are less formal. But they are ongoing professional development spaces. So you have the opportunity to find out a lot more about what's happening in our profession if we belong to these groups. Otherwise, how do we receive information about something like this? A conference or a webinar? How do we receive that information if we don't belong to these different networks, right? They're also a support network. Teaching can be isolating. COPs create emotional and professional support. This is absolutely true. Each circumstance is slightly different, right? But in the case of the Ecuadorian teachers in 2020, they felt so alone because they had no one in the Ministry of Education at the time. And so they felt they were all isolated, but creating a Facebook page brought them together and they felt supported and understood. Yeah, and that they weren't alone. They felt solidarity among their peers and their coworkers and their colleagues, right? So there's this emotional component also of COPs that's very beneficial for teachers. We need to have a place to go where others are going to understand us. And a community of practice is a perfect place for that because we're all in similar situations, right? Empowerment. This is also an important one. Teachers gain confidence when their voice and experience are valued. I think you guys can also agree with this statement that you feel empowered when you feel like what you say matters. And in communities of practice, it's often the case that we feel that what we contribute actually matters, right? And we join together and we feel stronger together. Yeah. And then innovation, exposure to diverse regional contexts. In the case of the Alianza del Pacífico, we can talk about Mexico, Chile, Peru, Colombia, and it sparks creative ideas. This exchange, more minds together really can create outstanding things. Yeah. So these are some benefits for teachers specifically. Okay. So for example, Yeah, a teacher in Peru shares how she integrates local culture into English lessons. This is perfectly relevant because we just talked about culture in the previous session, right? And then a colleague in Mexico adapts the idea for her students. This way, both improve their practice. How do both improve their practice? Well, the Peruvian teacher can improve by seeing how her idea or his ideal was adapted to a Mexican context. And the Mexican teacher can benefit because they received a new way of presenting culture in their class from the Peruvian, right? This is just one simple instance, but communities of practice are full of these opportunities. So I want you to reflect for a moment again, okay? Thank you for all the participation in the chat. It's amazing to see all your comments. This is so cool. What area or areas of your teaching would you like to improve through collaboration with others? All of us have something to improve. No matter how many years we have worked in the field, we always can improve our practices, right? All of us, without exception. And I'm sure there's a particular area where you feel, I would like to be a little stronger in this area. Yeah. What are some of those areas you would like to improve? Okay, so we see culture, teaching culture, strategies. Strategies is pretty broad. Let's get a little bit more specific. Like strategies about what? How to improve speaking skills, how to do writing, how to work with writing with your students. Good. Lesson planning, sure. Technology, Mariela, that's a big one. Yes, definitely. With AI, all of us need to learn more about AI, right? We need to learn along with our students who are already using AI. We need to keep up with them. So there's plenty of areas where we could collaborate in communities of practice, right? So this is a great opportunity for us to polish those areas that we need. And at the same time, the areas where we feel like we have a little more expertise, we can share with those people who feel they don't know as much. So it's a symbiotic relationship where everyone depends on everyone else, yeah, in order to improve their practices. Okay. We're coming towards the end here. So I want to mention that this actually has a ripple effect. What do we mean by a ripple effect? I'm going to show you an image that shows you what a ripple effect is. But the idea is that when teachers grow together, students can also learn better. So it's not only us that benefits, it's also them. And I think that we will agree that we do this profession of teaching for the students, right? We are in our professions because we love to teach students. So if they can benefit as well from our participation in communities of practice, awesome. How do they benefit? We can provide more engaging lessons for them. They're going to be more interested in what we have to teach them. We can learn from our communities of practice about more inclusive practices, working with specific needs, things like that, right? We can do better with those students. That's also important. They can have higher motivation because motivation is contagious. If we're learning and we're learning new stuff that we're excited about, that's going to show in our classrooms. And our students can also catch that motivation. Yeah. And consistency and quality. When we're in a community of practice, we feel a certain sense of responsibility, yeah, of reaching that level that we need to be at in our classes. So this also holds us more accountable for providing quality lessons in our class every day, quality resources, quality everything. Yeah. So you see, it's not only benefits for us, it's benefits also for our students. So this is a really important point. Okay, here is an image of what I mean about the ripple effect. If you weren't familiar with this term, we can say COPs have a ripple effect where the teachers are at the center, but the benefits extend to the entire educational community. So you see this image here of like water, yeah? And if you drop some water into the middle, who is directly affected or who is at the center of the drop of water? We are, the teachers are. But then the effect spreads like the ripples do, like this. It extends out to the rest of the entire educational community. Even the parents of the students can benefit from you participating in a community of practice. How? Because with your new enthusiasm, if the students are more motivated to study English and to work on the class, the parents will also be happier. They will be proud. They will be satisfied. They'll say, wow, my kid is actually at least wanting to learn English. That's great. You see, so this can have a ripple effect. The Alianza del Pacifico already connects us across borders, right? Because we're talking about 4 different countries. Just imagine what's possible if we turn that connection into a living, breathing community of practice where your voice and experience help shape English teaching across Latin America. Doesn't that feel great to think about that? To think that you guys can be part of this community of practice and be able to share your ideas and build English teaching across Latin America, across borders. I think that's super exciting. Okay, I'd like to finish up today with one last slide, which includes a quote, which was from one of the original, let's say, pioneers of communities of practice. And this quote says, "Learning is a social process. We learn best when we learn together." We have so much to learn with each other. Every time I do webinars and I work with English teachers across Ecuador, across South America, across Latin America, every single time I learn something, at least one thing from the teachers I work with. And they also learn. So imagine if we all join together and we work with this together, we can do wonderful, wonderful things in EFL teaching. So I encourage all of you to join forces, to get together, to work together, to join these communities of practice so that you can reach your full potential as teachers with others across the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janine Matz, for your presentation. Your reflections remind us of the importance of building and strengthening learning communities among teachers, where collaboration and shared experiences help us grow both personally and professionally. And I'm very happy to say that we have some time for a Q&A session. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, we have a lot of interaction from the teachers, and we're going to have time for a few questions. So I'm going to begin with the first one, and I think this one is one that a lot of teachers are asking. And is participating in learning community demanding? What kind of activities do members typically engage in?
Okay, yes, that's a good question. Is it demanding? It's a lot of times it's as demanding as you are willing to participate in it. So we have communities of practice where we have like a main leader and then some kind of secondary leaders, and then the rest tend to take more of a following role. We have other communities of practice where we have teachers or participants who interact more or less equally. So it depends on the community of practice itself, and it depends on how much energy you are willing to dedicate to it. What types of activities do communities of practice engage in? A lot of times webinars, things like this, right? Sometimes they'll engage in synchronous meetings if they want to talk about specific topics. Sometimes they will engage in, chats where it's all typed. It really depends. Each community of practice is different and their priorities are different. So it's hard to say that all communities of practice are just like this. And it's hard to say that all participants are the same either. So it really depends a lot on the community of practice you choose and also your own willingness to participate.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And let's continue with another question, but I'd like to say thank you to all the participants, all the teachers who have been engaging, and thanking you, of course, for this wonderful conference. And here is another question. Is there any interaction between teachers involving students from different regions?
Again, that's something that is in the hands of the participants of the communities of practice. There can be. I can speak for the community of practice that we have of the Facebook page. We do have times where teachers will share some things that their students produce. So like, for example, they will share photos of their students at an open house for English, the projects that they did. They will share videos of their students. They might share a video of a spelling bee or something related to what they did in their classroom or at their institution related to English. And that's very inspiring for others because we can actually visualize what another context looks like. We can compare it to our own and say, hey, we could do this too with our students. We could share the photos also with our students. Say, would you guys be interested in this? Look at what they did, for example, in Oaxaca, and look at what they did in Lima, and look at what they did in Santiago, and etc. So we can share those types of things and share the ideas that our students have. And sometimes I think it would be a fabulous idea to get our students connected, to connect our students also, like to have exchanges on Zoom, on Teams, on Google Meets. Now that we know how to work with this technology, we can also use it to benefit our students. So there's really no limit to the benefits of communities of practice.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And talking about all of this interaction, how do you control the information uploaded?
That's a hard one. That's a very difficult question. So it depends. Like if your community of practice is, for example, a social media page like Facebook or something, you can put in the rules of the community of practice, please do not upload any fake news, like we say, false information, anything like that. Right? You can put that and make the participants agree to that. But even still, we might have some participants who unknowingly upload false information or information that has not been shown to be exactly truthful or something. So in that case, we might want to have a person or a couple people in the group specifically in charge of checking the veracity of the information that other participants are providing, to make sure that if there's anything that is not legitimate, we get rid of that, or we make sure that it's clear that this was a post that was not verified, things like that. I think that's very important. In our case, in the Facebook page, we screen all of the posts. And if the posts do not seem quite legitimate or true, we check them. We do fact checking on them, and we make sure that they're legitimate.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny and Mats, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. And we would also like to thank all of the participants for their active engagement, questions, and thoughtful comments in the chat. Remember, your participation helps create a living and meaningful space for dialogue and collective learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ahora continuaremos en español. A continuación, tenemos un bloque especial que amablemente nos brinda la Alianza del Pacífico. Antes de eso, es importante reforzar que este es un evento académico y que son bienvenidos todos sus comentarios dentro de la cordialidad. Bueno, como sabemos, las comunidades de aprendizaje representan mucho más que un grupo de personas reunidas con un propósito común. Son espacios vivos donde se desarrollan actividades compartidas, donde convergen ideas, estrategias y reflexiones, pero también donde se reconocen los retos y, ¿por qué no?, las frustraciones que forman parte de este proceso de enseñar y de aprender. Con esta idea de comunidad, colaboración y aprendizaje compartido, es un gusto para mí presentar y darle la bienvenida a la maestra Pía Macías, coordinadora nacional del programa de inglés Abre Puertas en Chile. Bienvenida, maestra.
Muchas gracias. Bien, desde la Red de Inglés de la Alianza del Pacífico, creemos que la colaboración entre docentes de inglés no solo fortalece la enseñanza del idioma, sino también genera motivación, acompañamiento y sentido de pertenencia. Por eso, hoy queremos invitarles a escuchar los testimonios de colegas de los 4 países, México, Colombia, Perú y Chile, que ya participan activamente en comunidades de aprendizaje, reflexión y práctica entre pares. Comenzaremos con Alicia Villalobos Arana, subdirectora académica de la Escuela Primaria Capitán Rosendo Robles, en La Paz, Baja California Sur de México, quien nos comparte lo que significa formar parte de una comunidad de aprendizaje docente como un espacio para compartir experiencias, fortalecer la práctica profesional y construir colectivamente nuevas formas de enseñar y aprender. Luego, escucharemos a Jefferson Unigarro Negret, desde Colombia, de la institución educativa Chajal, del municipio de Tumaco, quien comparte los beneficios de aprender junto a otros profesores de inglés. Desde el Perú, conoceremos la experiencia de la maestra Carla Sumaeta Panduro, de la institución educativa Alfredo Vargas, quien nos cuenta cómo en su comunidad llamada Yumita Guaranu, profesor en dialecto cucama, ubicado en Loreto, selva de Perú, los docentes comparten sus prácticas pedagógicas, motivando a los demás a continuar contribuyendo a la mejora de la calidad educativa en el área de inglés. Y finalizaremos con el testimonio de Chile, en el que Gonzalo Varas Tapia, docente de inglés, líder pedagógico regional de la región de Tarapacá al norte de Chile y coordinador de la comunidad de aprendizaje entre pares de inglés llamada Collaborative Community for Public Educators de la comuna de Iquique, comentará cómo esta comunidad impulsa el desarrollo profesional y el sentido de pertenencia. Les invitamos amablemente a escuchar estas voces reales, con las que seguramente muchas y muchos se sentirán identificados. También les invitamos a animarse a ser parte de una comunidad de práctica entre pares.
La maestra Alicia Alejandra Villalobos Arana, subdirectora académica de la Escuela Primaria Capitán Rosendo Robles en La Paz, Baja California Sur, México. Es un gusto participar en esta jornada internacional y compartir mi experiencia como parte de una comunidad de aprendizaje entre pares. Ser parte de esta comunidad ha fortalecido mi práctica de 3 maneras diferentes. Primero, porque compartimos experiencias reales y construimos soluciones colectivas. Segundo, porque reflexionamos sobre estas estrategias de enseñanza y buscamos siempre mejorar. Y tercero, porque creamos un sentido de apoyo y pertenencia donde cada uno de los docentes se siente acompañado en sus retos cotidianos. Estas comunidades de aprendizaje también reducen el aislamiento docente porque genera una cultura colaborativa y de confianza. En estos espacios compartimos desafíos, diseñamos estrategias conjuntas y valoramos el trabajo de cada uno de los miembros del equipo. Participar en una comunidad entre pares ha reforzado mi identidad como docente y me ha hecho entender que estamos formando personas empáticas, autónomas y críticas. Y lo más gratificante es ver cómo los estudiantes perciben estos cambios, están más motivados, participan con más entusiasmo y se reconocen como parte activa de su proceso de aprendizaje. En mi escuela realizamos sesiones de academia semanales, donde los maestros de cada grado escolar se reúnen durante 2 bloques de 50 minutos una vez por semana. Estas sesiones requieren de coordinación y compromiso de todos los docentes de nuestra escuela para que estos espacios se desarrollen de manera armónica y productiva. Gracias a ello, hemos tenido la oportunidad de proyectar actividades más efectivas que impulsan el logro de los aprendizajes y fortalecen nuestro trabajo pedagógico. Este proceso transformó mi visión de liderazgo porque comprendí que cuando escuchamos y aprendemos juntos, crecemos como profesionales y fortalecemos a nuestra escuela. Esta experiencia reafirmó mi compromiso con el trabajo colegiado y con la construcción de una escuela pública más humana y más colaborativa. Invito a todas y todos los docentes de la Alianza del Pacífico para integrarse a las comunidades de aprendizaje, porque juntos podemos transformar la enseñanza del inglés como un espacio de crecimiento colectivo y esperanza compartida. Muchas gracias.
Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Jefferson Jesús Unigarro Negret. Soy colombiano, trabajo en un municipio que está ubicado al suroccidente de Colombia, en una zona del Pacífico. Soy profe de inglés y les quiero comentar cómo ha sido esa experiencia muy significativa trabajar con nuestros compañeros de diversas regiones acá en nuestro territorio colombiano. Experiencias significativas que ellos nos comparten y que uno ve cómo ha funcionado en ellos para fortalecer y llevar estas estrategias a nuestros estudiantes con el objetivo de que ellos puedan aprender este idioma a través del enfoque comunicativo. El gobierno nacional tiene un programa que se llama Centros de Inmersión en Lengua Extranjera. A través de nuestra formación allá, fortaleciendo esas competencias, esto garantiza el aprendizaje frente o hacia nuestros estudiantes, ya que este programa SILE de Centro de Inmersión al crearse esos espacios de intercambio, de compartir experiencias, redes de aprendizaje con apoyo de todos los docentes, crea buenas comunidades, porque mejor estudiar con profes conectados con el mundo. Invitamos a todos los profesores de todo el país para que hagan parte de las comunidades de práctica de enseñanza del inglés.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Carol Sumaeta y pertenezco a la comunidad de práctica en Nauta, Perú. En el pasado, cuando alguna situación retadora ocurría dentro del aula, generalmente me sentía muy frustrada al no saber cómo lidiar con ella. Pero desde que pertenezco a las comunidades de práctica, he encontrado un lugar donde puedo compartir experiencias, puedo encontrar soluciones prácticas y sobre todo apoyo emocional. Saber que voy a ser escuchada sin juzgamientos me da confianza de seguir trabajando con mis pares. Y eso también ha motivado en mí el sentir que he encontrado mi lugar en el mundo profesional. Este cambio también se ha notado en el desarrollo de mis clases, ya que he podido observar que mis estudiantes participan cada vez más activamente y he podido observar también sus rostros de satisfacción al terminar una jornada. Gracias a las comunidades de práctica, he tenido la oportunidad de visitar diferentes instituciones educativas, una de ellas ubicadas a 1 hora y 20 de la ciudad de Nauta, en la cual he podido compartir y observar la dedicación y el esfuerzo que tanto estudiantes y maestros ponen para desarrollar diferentes actividades como concursos de canto, poesía y el famoso Spelling Bee. Eso ha encendido en mí una llama de pasión y de motivación que hoy quiero compartir con ustedes.
Hola a todos, un afectuoso saludo desde Chile para todos nuestros países hermanos latinoamericanos que están hoy presentes en esta jornada. Soy profesor de inglés de la ciudad de Iquique hace 18 años. Hoy me encuentro en aula y a la vez estoy a cargo de reactivar las distintas comunidades de aprendizaje que existen en mi región. Pertenecer a una de estas comunidades ha sido una oportunidad muy valiosa que me ha permitido intercambiar buenas prácticas, aprender de estrategias que otros colegas ya han probado con éxito. Ha sido un espacio de actualización profesional constante, donde compartimos recursos, metodologías, enfoques que enriquecen nuestras clases. Por último, y no por eso menos importante, esto ha significado un apoyo humano y emocional trascendental, porque muchas veces los docentes trabajamos de manera muy aislada y estos espacios nos recuerdan que no estamos solos. Esto está completamente relacionado con algo que quisiera destacar hoy, y es que ser parte de una comunidad de aprendizaje me ha acompañado en mi propio desarrollo profesional. En Chile contamos con un sistema llamado carrera docente que busca reconocer y fomentar el avance de los profesores a través de distintos tramos y evaluaciones. Participar activamente en esta comunidad ha sido clave para mí en este proceso porque me ha permitido seguir aprendiendo, mantenerme actualizado y reflexionar sobre mi práctica junto a otros colegas. Lo que se aprende en comunidad tiene un valor enorme porque no solo mejora la enseñanza, sino también fortalece nuestra vocación y nuestro compromiso con la educación pública. Ser parte de una red de inglés ha sido sin duda una oportunidad para crecer, compartir y reafirmar el sentido profundo de ser profesor. Un abrazo desde Chile, con el orgullo de representar a tantos docentes que creen en la colaboración como un camino para transformar la educación.
Pues muchas gracias, maestra Pía, por esto que nos comparte, ya que es inspirador. Agradecemos también a los maestros que a través de estos videos nos han compartido su experiencia. Agradecemos también a todas y todos los asistentes por sus comentarios, preguntas y participación muy activa a través del chat, que han contribuido a hacer de este espacio un intercambio vivo y significativo. Gracias. También extendemos nuestros más sinceros agradecimientos a todas y todos los asistentes de México, Colombia, Chile y Perú por su entusiasta participación, su interés y su compromiso con el fortalecimiento de la enseñanza del idioma inglés. Les informamos que la encuesta correspondiente al día de hoy ya se encuentra disponible. Esta también funcionará como su registro de asistencia, por lo que les pedimos que la llenen cuidadosamente con sus datos correctos, ya que será utilizado para la emisión de sus constancias de participación. Les recordamos que, en caso de no poder asistir a las sesiones en vivo, podrán visualizarlas posteriormente. Sin embargo, para recibir su constancia será necesario completar las encuestas correspondientes a más tardar el día 31 de octubre del 2025. Finalmente, esperamos contar con su presencia el día de mañana para continuar con las actividades de esta Jornada Nacional, que nos invita a seguir aprendiendo, compartiendo y fortaleciendo nuestra práctica docente desde un enfoque comunitario, intercultural y colaborativo. Nos vemos mañana a las 3 p.m. Recuerden, hora central de México. Muchas gracias.